Sure, Councilor Gabriel, through you, Mayor. I'm going to kind of be brief because I'm going to probably get into a lot more next week with you. But as you recall, I think it was in June or July, we did do some rescoping on the project. Um, the council awarded that contract for kind of a redesign, and part of that was to demolish a couple of the older buildings. Um, those buildings were like 40 to 60 years old. A couple were 40, a couple were 50. And what we saw was that the value wasn't there for refurbishment. That demolition is actually currently taking place right now. Um, and then in the place of those was the new administration building, which will be a new building, and then the large parking garage for the big trucks, the solid waste vehicles, the plow trucks, things like that. We didn't have the height of the other garages to get them. Those are two big changes on the site. And then those are the two largest changes. And again, Dr. Gibby, I'll get into that more next week and really get more into detail on it. Oh man, that's the base bid award. I think we're requesting uh, to have for the solar panel, which is an additional $79,000 for the project, and then of course contingency that we're going to be asking for the project.
that there are environmental and social benefits of solar. And then Services Commission will decide on a rate that isn't favorable, going back to that avoided cost rate. So at our meeting on Thursday, EAC formed a subcommittee to draft a new position statement in opposition of that bill. The committee is myself, Harry Plendel, and Eric Krasanik, and we'll also be reaching out to other resources in Laramie, like folks from the Alliance for Renewable Energy, to get their expertise and to make the best position statement that we can. So that is what I have to say, and I will take any questions.
Questions? Yes, Vice Mayor Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. Ellen, thank you for your presentation tonight. Very, very well done. And I was curious, whoops, I got to turn that on. Thank you. I wanted to ask about, you said 70 people were there to testify. Were there any people there to testify in favor of the proposed legislation?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I would say that maybe 10%. So there were some folks speaking on behalf of the utilities companies. And then there are maybe one or two people who, you know, this idea that people with solar systems are not paying their full way. So some people worried about that, but less than 10% of the public commentary was in favor.
And then from the explanation from the committee members, you didn't really talk about, did they explain their position? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me that they would want to propose legislation against solar systems and having people, you know, put them up and save a little money and save the environment and so on. And Councilor O'Doherty, in her discussion with council about this, brought up the EAC and their work. But I'm just kind of curious about the overall philosophy behind this proposed legislation.
So nothing was explicitly stated other than this widespread opinion that folks with rooftop solar systems are not paying their full weight, and so they're being subsidized. And it's the data aren't even there to convincingly say that that's true. One could speculate about the the legislature wanting to provide incentives for other energy sources that Wyoming has traditionally depended on. But there was very little explicitly spoken in that meeting. And I will say that Senator Case made a comment about how, you know, if people want to save the world, they should be willing to pay more for that. So.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Anyone else for Ellen? Okay, I don't see any further questions. Is there anyone in the public that would like to ask questions or make comments on these presentations by Brooks Webb, Darren Parkin, and Ellen?
Honorable Mayor, if I could, I'll just jump in with a quick addition and some comments for the council.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Monica Leininger with Alliance for Renewable Energy. Thank you for all the presentations tonight and all the really useful information going forward. And thank you for the presentation from Chairman Carano about the net metering issue. I wanted to slightly try to give an opinion on Councillor Gabriel's question. And I would say that the past legislation has been much more straightforward. You know, should we provide fair payback for solar? Yes or no? But this new legislation that kicks the issue to the Public Service Commission seems easier for legislators to digest because
the other ones is trying to provide.
There's a different story for everybody that you talk to about why they're here, but
Oh, okay. Because it's the idea of putting the issue in the expert's hand. So if this goes to the Public Service Commission, those are the folks that should be setting rates and, you know, looking into the more technical issues of rate setting, which is very complicated. So I think that is why this will be a tougher piece of legislation to beat this time. But the devil is really in the details, and I think what Chairman Carano highlighted about the words around subsidization and not taking into account any of the social or environmental benefits of rooftop solar, such as jobs, workforce, economic diversification, reduction of carbon emissions, etc. That isn't as clear. You know, it's a matter that it's going to go to these experts, and legislatures won't then have to hear about this issue. And I will say that the main people in the legislature who have been supportive of reducing the payback for solar are people who have close ties to utility companies, and many utility companies don't really love rooftop solar because it's a matter of you having the investment and you're getting a return on your investment instead of them. So I would agree with Chairman Carano that there was, you know, an outpouring of comments against the bill, in particular from folks in Laramie and citizens across Laramie. Even folks we don't know through Alliance for Renewable Energy were there. But yeah, it's really, you know, getting down to that ideological matter as well of, do we want to support renewable energy when we're trying to hold on to our legacy resources in the state, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. So with that, thanks for accepting my additional comments, and happy to talk anytime more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see a hand from Zoom user.
Oh, sorry, it was just hovered over there. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. All right. Anyone else? All right, I want to thank everyone for their input into this portion of our work session. Unless there's comments from council, I think we'll go right into our next work session. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then, no, we will. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll start in on our next portion of our work session. Okay, we're back on air, so we're going to go back into the next part of our work session, which is on the original ordinance 2017, which has to do with municipal code regarding general contracting license. Our Assistant City Manager, Todd Feaser, will introduce this to us, and then we'll begin that discussion.
Honorable Mayor, Todd Feaser, Assistant City Manager, appreciate the time that we're taking tonight to work through and try to get some resolution and something that can be supported on the changes and the potential implementation of general contractor licensing. Clarice and I have been working over the past couple of weeks on a presentation tonight, and a few things before I turn it over to Clarice is one of the things that we'd like you to really keep in mind is that at the City of Laramie, we permit projects and we license firms and people to conduct work. And that's what really happens at code administration. So tonight we're going to go over, and since most of the questions we feel about general contractor licensing have really revolved around permitting more than what general contractor licensing will mean, the presentation is broken down into three pieces. We're going to go over permitting, the process, what's permitted, what's not permitted, what people can conduct, what work they can conduct, and how it can be conducted, and that way. Then we're also going to talk about our current licensing, which currently we license mechanical, plumbing, electrical, and some other trades that Clarice will explain to you, and we're going to go over that process. And then we're going to show you the proposed ordinance, how it matches into that. After we get through all of that on next Tuesday, because we're going to keep you here for 7 days to go over all this, when we get through all that, then we're going to really hopefully roll up our sleeves and get to work on what council would like to see changes, what kind of changes we want, and really get to the meat and bones of the work session. And that's really what we've intended to do tonight, and hopefully we have plenty of time to do that. So again, if you'll just keep in mind as you work through this that we permit projects and we license firms and individuals to conduct that work at code administration, then that will really help. But without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Clarice Hoff. She's our code administration supervisor. She manages what effectively is the building department, the permitting and the licensing, and the staff that works in that realm. So if you go ahead and start the presentation, Nancy.
Thank you, Todd. Go ahead, Clarice.
Honorable
Welcome.
Mayor, council members, we will start our presentation for general contracting licensing. As Todd mentioned, we broke it down into three sections: the permitting process, existing trade contractor license, and proposed general contracting license. The permitting guidance is addressed in the municipal code. They have in the municipal code, it references the adoption of the ICC code series, and the international code series is how we process and permit going forward with the permitting process is dictated in pretty much the IBC and the IRC. So at the permitting process, what is permitted and what is not permitted? There's the explanation that is given for the IBC and the IRC section 105. Any owner or owner's authorized agent who intends to construct, enlarge, alter, and repair, move, demolish, or change the occupancy of the building or structure, or to erect, install, enlarge, alter, repair, remove, convert, or replace any electrical, mechanical, or plumbing installation. As you can see, this encumbers a lot, but this is what is dictated as a requirement in the IRC that the City Council has adopted. So this is what we adhere to. The IBC and the IRC covers permitting not only for building, but plumbing, mechanical, electrical, gas services, and several other trades that we have permits for, or that we use permitted work. One of the questions that we have had that I have answered in Mr. Matimer's questions that he submitted was the alter and repair. That was mentioned that was kind of far-reaching. And I just want to point out again that this is in the IRC and the IBC that we have to adhere to in our permitting process that has been adopted by City Council. The permitting exemptions, we have listed out the exemptions that are listed in the International Building Code and in the International Residential Code. The building exemptions, we've listed a few of those. For example, if a accessory structure for a commercial is under 120 square feet, a building permit is not needed. If it's residential, that requirement is if it's less than 200 square feet. Fences that are not over 7 feet tall. Sidewalks and driveways is an exemption. So you can painting, papering, filling, carpeting, cabinets, countertops, and similar finish work. Those are items that are not permitted. Decks that do not exceed 200 square feet. So those are the building exemptions that are listed in the IBC and IRC. The electrical exemptions, temporary decorative lighting such as Christmas lights, Halloween lights, reinstallation of attachment plug receptacle covers, meaning the face plates, receptacle faceplate covers, replacement of branch circuit devices. That's like for like. If you're replacing a switch and it's like for like, we don't need a permit for that. It's an exception. USB devices, items operating of less than 25 volts, not compatible, supplying 50 watts of energy. And then minor repair work of items plugged into approved receptacles. Those are exemptions under the electrical portion, and that is all listed under section 105 as well. With the gas, you have portable heating, and the operable word there is portable, if you can move it. So your gas stoves, your box items that you buy at Walmart and bring home, that you take out of the box and you plug in, those you do not need permits for. Replacement of minor parts that does not alter approval of the equipment. That is if you're not altering the manufactured specs, because there will be manufactured specs for the item. As long as you're not altering that, you don't need a permit. Portable, again, is the operable word on fuel and cell appliances. Barbecue, your barbecues, your smokers, propane and gas space heaters are a few of those examples. Under mechanical, any of your major home appliances that are not built in, or such as washers, dryers that you take out of a box and is plugged into an existing hookup. Those are items that do not require to be permitted. And then plumbing, those, the stopping and leaks of drains, etc. there, where the exception becomes is if once it's necessary to remove and replace, then such work shall be considered new work and require permitting. But if you're stopping a leak and drain and you're not replacing, you don't need a permit. And then of course clearing of stoppages or repairing of leaks. And there again, once you replace pipes, valves, and fixtures, then a permit's going to be required, but otherwise you don't need a permit. These are listed in the IBC and the IRC under section 105. Who can perform what permitted work? Homeowners performing the work on their primary residence with their own two hands can pull permits for any permitted work that they want to do. Primary residence, and they are the owner of the residence. Commercial, all permitted work would be done by a licensed trade contractor that's currently licensed with the city of Laramie. And rentals, because that is not the property owner's primary residence. All permitted work must be conducted by licensed trade contractors. And again, just want to point out that the permitting process has not changed. It is set and it continues as it always has been. So the permitting process does not affect general contracting licensing. The permitting process, there are times that we are asked to do a consultation. We do go do on-site consultations, and we don't charge for those because they're usually in the process of wanting to do a building permit, submit plans. They have some questions, so when requested, we do on-site consultation. The applications, we have 3. The building permit application that also serves for a demo application. The combo permit, which is a combination permit that has sections for plumbing, mechanical, and electrical. And then a sign permit application. The application is taken in, reviewed, and depending on the type of permit application, it can be approved over the counter, or if it needs to go into plan review with drawings, it's submitted into plan review. Once the permit's approved, whether it's over the counter or in plan review, fees are paid and the permit is issued. The permit's not issued until the permit has been paid, and you need the permit prior to work starting. Progress inspections are scheduled as necessary and when needed. And then final inspections are about 80%, and certificate of occupancies are about 20%. Permitting fees, the building and electrical permit fees, those are based on evaluation, and it's a sliding scale, and it hasn't been updated since 2006, but it being on a sliding scale, it pretty much adjusts itself to the valuations. The plumbing and mechanical permit fees includes a base fee plus a per item fee, and it has not been adjusted in recent history. Does anybody have any questions on permitting?
I think that's an important place for us to stop and give a chance to answer any questions that may be related to the permitting process. And again, as Clarice has reiterated, you know, this has already been adopted by City Council, and this is the way the process works. And hopefully this cleared up some of the questions that we've had, and we'll give it a few seconds to see if there are any questions.
Can you go to the, so I can see who's has
See how
questions.
good you are now.
All right, any questions, Councilor Harrington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I know the answer to this, but I'll just ask for clarity's sake. What happens on a commercial property if somebody is leasing the space and wishes to make modifications, or I guess the word would be alterations, for their business, and they plan to do that work with their own 2 hands as well?
It being a commercial project, they would need, well, okay, are we talking about plumbing, mechanical, or electrical, or are we talking about building? Because currently...
Building.
Okay.
Building.
So currently, right now, the city of Laramie does not license building contractors. So if that individual came in and they're going to list the owner, because that's required on the building permit application, if they come in, because we don't license general contractors, there's no requirements. If they submit the appropriate documentation, plans, and specs, they can proceed.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could, so even if they were leasing the space, if they were the, as it currently sits, they could do the work legally if they weren't the owner of the building, but they were leasing?
Yes, because if they put themselves down as the contractor, because we don't license general contractors, there's no requirements, and they submit the appropriate documentation, the building permit application, plan specs, yes. And I
Thank you, Clarice. Yeah, that's great.
Other questions for Clarice? Okay, you want to go to the next section? I didn't either. Thanks.
Our next section is trade contractor licensing. Again, this is through the Laramie Municipal Code and through the International Code Council. Currently, our trade contractors are as listed. So these are a current list of our current trade contractors that are licensed with the City of Laramie. And we are in the process of renewal right now for them. And then the trade contracting licensing requirements. There again, each year the contractor would submit a renewal contractor's application where they're going to indicate basically contact information, their address, and on that application they are required to also list their master or supervisor of record. That master or supervisor of record is required to be licensed with the City of Laramie as well, and they do need to provide, when they are being licensed, their ICC, usually what we see is an ICC test for their master of record, master plumber, master mechanical, and then with the electrical, it is the State of Wyoming Master Electrical License. That is required on the application. The verification is also a for the let me back up, I apologize. Qualified master of record and the supervisor, when they are being licensed, they must submit a qualified certification of qualification as well as a verification of experience along with their test showing that they passed at the master level. And along with the application, they would need, the contractor would also provide limited liability insurance and workers' compensation. With the liability insurance, the City of Laramie is listed as the certificate holder. With the State of Wyoming for the workers' comp, the City of Laramie is listed as the recipient. And then for the trade contractors, we also ask either they provide a State of Wyoming electrical license or the State of Wyoming low voltage license, or a letter stating that they will not perform any electrical work and a licensed electrician will be hired. Also with the trade contractors, if you note that not only masters and supervisors of record have to be licensed with the City of Laramie, but their apprentices, journeymen, and any other masters that are working underneath them would have to be licensed with the City of Laramie as well. So apprentices, journeymen, and masters do have to be licensed with the City of Laramie to work in the city limits.
And just to clarify a little bit with what Clarice had gone over there, as a certificate holder, being the city of Laramie. What that really does is that notifies us of any changes to the policy that may be made that may not meet the requirements. It doesn't put us, we aren't additionally insured, we aren't part of the insurance policy. We're just made assured that the contractor has the insurance at the level that's required. So if they lose the policy, if they change the limits, something that doesn't meet, we get notified as all to make sure that it still meets our licensing requirements. The same on the workers' comp and good standing. As a recipient, all we get is notified as if their good standing goes away. We're not a part of their workers' comp claim. We're not part of their workers' comp enrollment, but we are notified that they have workers' compensation. They're in good standing, and that if they lose that good standing, then we're notified, and then that gives us a chance to make contact with the contractor to make sure that, hey, you've got a problem, you need to get it corrected so that we can make sure that you're still licensed with the city of Laramie. So.
And the reason that we also, the trade contractors submit every year during renewal their contractor's license is it gives them the opportunity, if they've changed addresses, if they've changed their qualified supervisor of record, then we know that. Throughout the year, if they lose their qualified super of record, they have 30 days to notify us and get another qualified supervisor listed on their application. So the basic process for the trade contractors to license is they submit the application, list the master of record or supervisor of record. They submit the forms and we review the forms, make sure we have the correct documentation and the licenses provided for that specific trade. And then we move forward with them getting their license if all is in order. The fees for the trade contractors for new, depending on the type of trade that you are, is $150 to $300. The renewal ranges is $25 to $35. And for the supervisor of record or master of record, the new is $15 to $20, and the renewal is $10 to $15.
It's a good place for us to stop and see if there's any questions before we move on to the proposed general contracting section. Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mayor Shonda.
You're welcome, Todd. Where is she? Okay, any questions on this section? All right, let's go on to the last section then.
So in coming to the proposed general contracting license, what is being proposed is what we worked with general contractors on. We had 3 meetings that we worked, that general contractors came in. We tried to meet early in the morning at their convenience. And through working with them back and forth, this is the result of our meetings. And looking at what other jurisdictions license and how they licensed, we tried to tailor it to where it meets the basic requirements for the city of Laramie, that we have a product that we know that the general contractors have the comprehension and the skill knowledge at the level that they are building at, and gives assurance to the city and to the community. The first class is the general Class A, and they can do all building, commercial, they can do residential. And the way that this is set up, it's tiered from top to bottom. So if you're a Class A, you can perform and obtain permits for all type of constructions, which also then would flow down that you would also be able to do whatever Class B, Class R, and Class C would do. The reason I want to point this out is there's some jurisdiction that has broken the general contractor's licensing down to where you may have to hold 2 or 3 different contracting licenses. Say if you were doing a roofing, you would need a roofing one. If you were certain types of framing, you would have to carry several different, like if you were doing wood structure framing as opposed to steel training, they would have 2 different contractors licensed for that. So in looking at that, we did more of a tiered down. So if you held that Class A, you do anything below you as well as what that A without having to obtain a different license. The general contractor Class B, they can do any residential, commercial, non-structural, tenant finish, and 1-story construction up to 10,000 square feet or less. That is enabling a lot of our contractors to hit into the commercial area, such as building storage sheds and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where we were hitting with that with the commercial. It falls in line with other jurisdictions as well. The Class R is for residential, single-family dwellings, not more than 3 stories above grade. And then the Class C is roof assembly, siding, egress windows, permitted fencing, and signs. I want to stress here that these classes correlate over to the International Building Code and International Residential Code on their testing. I indicated the testing number that correlates to the qualified supervisor, that what they would need for Class A, Class B, or Class C. This is also a common practice through several jurisdictions that are in the state of Wyoming and surrounding communities around us. So, there's a chart here that...
How about if I give you a little break?
Okay.
So this chart really basically shows a regional look at what Clarice and other general contractors, everybody that worked on this, looked at as what's offered around the region. She did mention nicely that some jurisdictions around our region create different licenses for lots of different ones, and that most notably is Cheyenne. If you look, there's a Class C1, a Class C2, a Class B, a Class C, a Class S, as well as the A, B, and R. So they've got lots of different classes, and what she was indicating is, based on what you do, if you do steel structure manufacturing, you might get 1 class, but you also might be required to get another class to be able to do that same thing, so you'll be picking up multiple licenses. You know, if you see Casper offers an A, B, and an R, and then they've got demo and roofing as a separate, whereas in our option, we chose to have Class C as an option. You know, Gillette's got a very similar structure to us with an extra Class D. Jackson and Fort Collins, Colorado have a similar structure to us, and Laramie County. They're all similar, but we want to show you that, you know, this is really pretty standard throughout the region with communities that we tend to compare ourselves to.
The proposed general contracting license, the requirements. There again, we looked at other jurisdictions. These requirements were presented at the roundtable meetings with the general contractors that were attending to get their input and feel. And this is what we're presenting also to you tonight. The requirement for the Class A for the qualified supervisor, it indicates 7 years. Class B and R is 5 years, and Class C is 3 years. Provisions of appropriate testing requirements for the qualified supervisor would need to indicate a successful pass in that area when applying with the general contracting license.
Clarice, before you move on, could you explain how that verification experience looks?
The verification of experience, that is a form that is completed by someone other than the applicant verifying their work experience. So, and their signature is notarized, and then they also they can submit other certifications that they have, other references. But what we look at, and this is mirrored again to the trade contractors, is the certification of qualification, which is basically the application of the individual. The verification of experience is someone verifying that this person actually has done this work and their signature is notarized. And then the backup is the test at the level that they are applying for, showing a successful pass.
One of the things that Clarice had indicated there is that what I heard was her statement to reciprocity, which is if you're licensed in Cheyenne at a certain level and it meets the city of Laramie's requirements, that you will be given reciprocal licensure here with payment of fees and proof of that certification.
Well, they would still need to complete the certificate of qualification, the verification of experience, and the test would still be requested, knowing that Cheyenne requires this test, and in fact, I think most of them that we've listed requires a successful ICC pass. So there's no reason why they can't give us that test as well. ICC, you can go out and print out your certification at any given time. But as you know, as far as someone coming in and with a Cheyenne license, they would still need to go through our process. That's the way the trade contractors are set up as well. Just as our contractors go over to Cheyenne or up to Casper or Douglas, they go through the paperwork, they have to submit their application, their verification of experience, and provide their test showing that they passed at the level that they're applying for. And there's numerous times that I have gotten calls from other cities asking, or the individual asking me if I have a copy of their test. And then I go pull it and send it off to them. And then we talk again about the liability insurance and workers' comp, and I think that's pretty clear. And then the proposed general contracting licensing. For Laramie, what we're proposing is basically the same requirements that we're asking of our trade contractors, which is the application, qualified supervisor of record, the workers' comp, liability insurance, the fees be paid, the successful test of the QSOR, certification of qualification, verification of experience, and the qualified supervisor fees. This lines up with the trade contractors as what is required for them. And then it shows a comparison of what Cheyenne requires. Some jurisdictions even require, in addition to liability insurance, the surety license permitted bond. And there was a long list of what some of these, so we didn't include all of the additional requirements that some of the other jurisdictions do require. But to us, this was kind of the basic, and what we're proposing to establish the qualifications of the contractors.
The continuing list from some of the other communities could have actually been printed out on toilet paper. It needed to be that long. So there was hands-on experience requirements. There was references, straight up reference requirements. There was just a lot of, some communities take it and make it very difficult, very many hoops to jump through. And we opted, and Clarice's team members that she worked with opted to keep it to the same requirements that we already require of our trade contractors in our community.
And I remember that there's a concern about the younger contractors coming into the industry, and general contracting may be a hindrance to them. And I want to point out that in some of the jurisdictions, they require 3 completed projects that have a CO. We did not put that down as a requirement because, to me, that's kind of like the chicken and the egg. If I can't get licensed with the city to prove I've accomplished a project with a CO, how am I going to, provide that to you? So we did not put that in as a requirement. That would be a hurdle for them to go through. They would literally probably have to go to another jurisdiction to get those completed projects if it wasn't a requirement there.
Mr. Mayor, can I interrupt just to ask Clarice what she means by a CO?
Yes, Councilor Doherty, go ahead.
Honorable Mayor, through you, I apologize. A certificate of occupancy that we usually see on major additions, on new construction is where we would issue a certificate of occupancy. It can be issued at other types of projects, but normally it's on additions or single-family residence, commercial, a tenant finish on a commercial building, or a new commercial remodel, new construction. We also at times, for our customers upon request, provide a letter of completion, meaning that their basement finish is completed. They may need that to give to the insurance company or to the mortgage. So on requests, we provide letter of completions when we have finalized out a project. And I apologize, I should not have used the acronym.
This next slide is a comparison of the years of experience that were required of the qualified supervisor of record. And you can see Laramie for the Class A was 7, for the Class B and R was 5, and Class C was 3, which mirrors Cheyenne exactly. Is a little bit less than Casper in 2 areas and a little bit more than Casper in 2 areas, and then is above the requirements in Sheridan, Fort Collins, and Laramie County.
The proposed general contracting licensing, the process is pretty much similar to the trade contractors, where an application is needed. They list their supervisor of record. They submit the requested documentation. And then if we have all the appropriate documents and they are completed, then we can proceed with the license provided through code administration. The fees are indicated. They range from $500 to $300 depending on the class that you are applying for, and the renewal fee is $200 to $75 range depending on the class. And then the QSOR certification of qualification, for new, it's a flat $100 for the qualified supervisor, and renewal is $50, and that would be annual. It would also be set up on the same renewal basis as the trade contractors, where you it expires at the end of each year, 12/31.
Now, keep in mind before we go on to this next slide that these fees were, Clarice proposed a set of fees, and these fees were vetted through those groups of folks that she met with. Some comments I heard is that the fees were already too low, and some may have thought, did anybody say that they were too high, or was everybody pretty comfortable with it?
In our discussions in our roundtable, both with the proposed licensing fees and the insurance fees, the general contractors that were attending those tables felt that they were reasonable, and actually there wasn't much discussion in regards to them.
So if you look at this slide, it shows, of course, Laramie's fees are broke out there, and it compares us to some different ones. If you look at the top two of the communities that we compared ourselves, actually have an upfront application fee that is non-refundable based on whether you make it or don't through their licensing process. But Cheyenne's got a $50 application fee, and Fort Collins has a $75 application fee. Some communities like Fort Collins, we didn't find where it had a separate renewal fee, so it's just a flat $200 for those first 4 every year that you're a licensed contractor there. You can see Gillette's 500, 300, down to 75. Casper's got renewals and different fees, and Cheyenne, of course, has the same fees and renewal fees that are available to the different contracting classes.
So under the benefits of general contracting licensing, we've listed out 3 benefits to general contractors to be licensed with the City of Laramie, and professional credibility, building relationships, and it's a good business practice. And 3 benefits to hiring a licensed general contractor is licensing and insurance. It does save time and money, and the reason that is there's a lot of times when someone hires work to be done, they're coming back in with another general contractor to undo what that person did and fix it, which costs that customer, that citizen, additional time and money and frustration. And knowing that the general contractor has the knowledge and the comprehension that is needed for their skill. 3 benefits to the community of Laramie: accountability and competency, ability to identify licensed general contractors, licensed contractors' requirements.
Now, before we had reached postponement at the second reading, we had proposed some changes that were in the documents that we sent you. One of those was to add for compensation under the definition of general contractor. So that's somebody that does this work for a fee. And so we proposed to add that. We also proposed to add homeowners that lead, manage, any of the above are exempt from licensing under this ordinance. However, all necessary permits shall be obtained prior to the work commencing. And then some other proposed amendments is maybe we need to add permitted to the definition of construction, meaning all permitted work is what it would stand for, and then add it more to the definition of construction by including, but not limited to any building or structure that is erected, constructed, enlarged, altered, repaired, moved, improved, removed, converted, or demolished. And that's kind of where we got with the presentation, to give you a little more education on what it looks like, how it works. Hopefully we answered some questions, and this is where I think we hoped we would have that working part of the work session where we could discuss council's concerns and try to effort those as we move forward into hopefully a positive second reading in January.
All right, so council, we've been asked to see what we can do as far as voicing our concerns, suggestions, things that we can work through prior to the reintroduction of this in a future city council meeting. Councilor Harrington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm curious, Clarice, if you could walk me through the verification of experience one more time quickly, and maybe with this specific thing in mind. because I think I might have missed something. So there was a lot of information in there, and I do appreciate it. I just want to make sure I'm understanding a particular instance. So does that verification, that requires a supervisor or somebody like that to sort of sign off? If I understood correctly, and I'm curious what that would look like if you were sort of a one-person operation who has, it doesn't matter how many years, but enough years to pass the test and to do the work well. What does that verification of experience look like in that circumstance?
In those circumstances, what is normally presented to me, I apologize, Mr. Mayor, through you.
Yes,
I
go ahead.
apologize. Usually, what I see then is, the way it is someone other than the applicant completes that. When it is an individual that has been working on their own, such as a sole proprietorship, what we normally see then is them getting references and basically verification of work experience through their customers, vouching that they have done work through the years, proving that they have worked X amount of years for that. Now with the trade contractors where you're licensing apprentices and journeymen, you've got that record that they've been at a journeyman level for so long, and then they can take the journeyman test, and after so many years, then they can take their master test if they so desire. But I still have, even in the trade contractors, you still get, especially at a master level where they've worked all themselves by themselves and they're coming in from another jurisdiction. I've even had other building departments actually write the verification of experience because they're comfortable enough with that contractor to write out the verification and verify that yes, they have worked in this town for this many years and their work is satisfactory.
Thank you, Clarice. Mr. Mayor, could I ask a follow-up question to that? Curious about, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Are we asking these sole proprietors specifically? Are we asking them to demonstrate, if we imagine they're doing residential and they're looking for 5 years of verified experience, are we asking them to go back and find clients from 5 years ago that they can have work as or provide reference for them?
Well, we would with the requirements that we are proposing, they would need to be able to prove that they have worked in that area 5 years, whether it's through the verification of experience or proving completed projects.
Councilor Harrington, to maybe add a little bit more to your answer that Clarice gave you is, I think anybody that can verify that experience, it could be another trade contractor, it could be another general contractor, it could be a client, it could be somebody, it could be a bank. A banker could verify that experience. There's anybody that has knowledge of that experience that's willing to notarize their signature that you have that experience is going to meet the qualifications or the criteria for us. Is that correct, Clarice?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Vice Mayor Gabriel, and then I have Councilor O'Doherty.
Thank you, Mayor. Clarice and Todd, thank you. Very thorough presentation. Very well done. I had questions as we were going along, and you've answered, I think, all of them. I just wanted to express my appreciation for the presentation. The one thing I was interested in is the cities around Wyoming and the comparison, and you both demonstrated what that looks like on your slide earlier. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor O'Doherty?
I want to have a general contractor license, but there's several things that are giving me heartburn. And since we were just on the subject of verifying the experience, shouldn't the verifier be a qualified supervisor. So if I worked for a sloppy contractor for 5 years, then I could become a qualified supervisor of record, but somebody who's a craftswoman and is just starting out but can pull contractors together is not qualified. So that gives me the qualified supervisor of record part. It gives an up for the people that are currently in business, and it hurts anybody starting out. And I feel like we are an educational community that we should have criteria for if somebody completes the 4-year degree in construction management or other things instead of, because right now if you have an engineering degree, you can't be a qualified supervisor of record until you've hammered nails for 5 years. You can't build a house. So I really would like to see some other things in there to be a qualified supervisor of record. And so maybe we could have a provisional general contractor license for somebody starting out, and they could tell their clients, I'm provisional because I just started out, but this is somebody I know and trust, and they have the insurance, which kind of acts like that qualified supervisor of record. If you have to have that liability insurance, you're going to have to meet standards. And the city is inspecting a new construction like 12 times through every stage of construction. So I feel like we have the safeguards. So I'm uncomfortable with the number of years experience with the qualified supervisor of record. I think they're high. And I just don't like that we're making a barrier to new contractors. I like that we can make it so a person can learn the trade from a master and take the test that way because they've learned it, or if they've learned it because they have gone through a 4-year program, or they've just been through the program that the university is offering. So I just want there to be other ways to get that QSOR, and I want there to be some kind of provisional, and that's my many things. But I've been trying to articulate them. But just so you know where I'm coming from, I'll be curious to hear what the public thinks. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, through you, I'd like to address that because a 4-year degree at the university, whether it's in project management or something else, does not correlate to the building, actual physically building of the structure. It's two different skill sets, and I'll give you an example. My daughter's an electrical engineer, and she has her master's in her electrical engineering. However, if she wanted to be an electrician, she would start out as an apprentice. Her electrical engineering degree would not do her any good if she wanted to be an electrician. It's two different skill sets. And by doing that, you're muddying the waters as far as what the qualifications are and what are your requirements for a provisional.
So
you're muddying the waters, and because there's two different skill sets, so I mean, a degree at the university is wonderful, but it doesn't always correlate over to the practical world of the actual construction industry. And the other thing in regards to that is when you would be taking the test to also show your comprehension and your knowledge and your skill to be able to be a qualified supervisor at a Class R, Class B, or a Class A. And I think Bryce is on, and I think he could also probably speak to this as well.
Yeah, we'll get to the public. We'll get to the public in a moment.
Okay.
Councilor Doherty, go ahead. You had another question.
Mr. Mayor, can I just point out that it's a program called, like it's a 4-year program on construction, what's it called?
Construction management.
Construction management, a 4-year program where they do internships, and they pass the American Institute of Contractors exam, which, according to Professor Jacobs, is more rigorous than the general contractors exams that we're proposing. So I disagree that it's a different skill set. Also, the engineers that are drawing up the plans wouldn't be qualified as a qualified supervisor of record. Anyway, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Other questions for Clarice or Todd? As some of you know, I've wasted half of my COVID experience building a house. And I've learned a lot about how important it is to make sure that qualified people do the work so it's done properly. And so obviously this is something that's very desirable for us to have. I will say this though, one of the major general contractors in town told me that he can hire a group of individuals from Central America that speak no English, and they do the work for half the price for him. And he said they are the most skilled, professional, from the foundation to the finish work on any home, any project, electrical, plumbing, anything that they need to do. He said they are the very, very best, but they have no hope in Laramie, Wyoming, to ever be a general contractor, because we're not prepared to do English, all these steps in English for these individuals, and Spanish, because we don't have the ability to take them through all these different hoops, and they're not comfortable walking into City Hall and pulling permits and things because they don't communicate. But they are, and I can give you the name of their company, and I have seen their work, and they are absolutely the very best, but they have no hope to ever be general contractors in Laramie, Wyoming. So, but I can tell you this, they are thrilled to be working in their trade. They are thrilled to be they are so busy they don't have a day off. They start at 7 in the morning, go till 7 at night, because that's what they want to do. And they are very, very, very skilled, but they have no hope to jump through all the hoops that we have for them to be general contractors and to have their own business in the sense that they take it from the beginning of the project to the end without somebody being their supervisor. So, but America's a great place, and they love it, and they love being here. But we have requirements for new contractors, for people with this different language, and probably others. But what we're attempting to do with this ordinance, and I can see it very clearly, is we're attempting to eliminate all of the people that harm people that are trying to have work being done for them by people that are not prepared, not skilled, have no ability to take a project through the different phases. Anyway, that's just a comment that I had. Now, if we are prepared to take these people that speak no English and give them the same opportunity as somebody that has fluent English, then I would be surprised. Okay, anyone else? Councilor Stalder.
Thank you. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but when we originally talked about this ordinance, it would generate, I don't remember, like $50,000. And I remember you saying, Clarice, that the only cost associated was laminating the permits. So I wonder if there's not something that the city could do to address what Mayor Shumway was just talking about, and what Councilor O'Doherty and Councilor Harrington alluded to with barriers to entry. you know, if we're generating revenue off of this, are we doing our due diligence to give back to the community? You know, whether that's through some sort of like trade program or providing this stuff in Spanish. I don't know, just kind of a thought. That's my biggest concern with this is we're really increasing barriers to entry for people that are really, really qualified. That's all.
Honorable Mayor, through you, we can take those notes and we'll see what we can do to effort those.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, I want to thank Clarice for her hard work. Obviously, you have spent hours and hours, and you put your heart into this. You're doing it for the betterment of the city of Laramie. We appreciate that. We just want to make sure that, you know, that everyone feels like that they have a program that benefits everyone. And I know that's probably impossible, but I know that as we look at general contractors, it makes sense that if we have contracting for electrical, plumbing, and everything else, that we ought to have, you know, the one that oversees everything to be also have the requirements to do a master's work in building the building community within Laramie. Okay, final comments from anyone before we end this work session. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that, and it's been an interesting discussion. That was a really informative presentation. I just want to state that I think there's a lot of good in this policy, and I think you've heard some criticism, and I think you've heard some suggestions for things that could stand for improvement. But I think overall, where we're headed with this type of policy is a direction we need to be going in. When we think back to those people who have had incredible problems with contracting that they've had done, on homes that they've had built, on work that they've had done to repair parts of homes or additions, and the hassle that those individuals have endured. And then they've contacted the city, and we've been placed in a position where we've had to say repeatedly to many people in many difficult circumstances, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. This is a step in the right direction to make sure that's not happening anymore. And I'm very supportive of a lot of what I'm seeing in this policy. I think there's room for improvement, and I look forward to seeing what changes that might be beneficial. But I think the overall direction that this policy seeks to move in is a good one. And I'm very supportive of it, and I appreciate all the work that's been done on it so far. And I would hate to see the close of this work session take place without an expression of support from the council toward that end. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Doherty.
Some of my problems are just grammar, and I really grapple with just the description of what a general contractor class B license, what you can do, because it seems to me when I read it probably 50 times that a person can do non-structural things and construct. I just think it needs some punctuation, and I don't know how that kind of stuff happens with when you're passing an ordinance. So I guess I'll just go over that with Todd some more. Thank you.
Anyone else on council? Okay, I told the public that we would hear from them, so let's have those that want to make comments, questions from the general public have their opportunity now. Okay, Mr. Glass, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. I have to say that I'm just, appalled by the level of bureaucracy I see in this proposal. It's definitely going to raise the cost of housing, not only because it excludes the quality workers that the mayor was speaking about before, but also because it adds a tremendous additional layer of bureaucracy. I can hire a licensed contractor, and I am already assured, because that individual tradesperson is licensed, that they ought to be able to do quality work. Now, suddenly, for many projects where I didn't require them before, I would have to hire a general contractor to manage the whole thing, and that is going to add time and money. If I want to, for example, my family works very hard to provide quality rentals to people at reasonable prices. And suddenly, if we want to put in a bathtub, and we can't just call the plumber to put in the bathtub, now we have to have a general contractor to manage the project, because this is going to involve maybe a little plumbing, a little painting, a few other things. Suddenly we need to hire a general contractor, and probably wait for one too, because as you know, contractors in Laramie get backed up, and there'll be a long delay in being able to do the maintenance. So this will defer the maintenance of housing, and in fact of all buildings. It also, if you look through the language, there's a lot of vagueness there. It leaves too much discretion to the whims of the city bureaucrats. And also, there's going to be a lot of labor involved in this. We're going to have higher labor costs. We'll have to hire more city staff to cover this at a time when where our budget is already being impacted by events at the state level and by COVID. It's going to deter and slow business development and create barriers to entry for new contractors, as has been mentioned. It'll raise our insurance premiums, because when the cost of repairs goes up, well, your premium has to cover that, so your insurance is going to go up too. And it's not going to protect consumers from hiring, say, a dishonest roofer who comes along. It's because it is only when you're doing a project that it kicks in. So the gypsy roofer that comes along and does a bad job might still take some people for a ride. Now, some of the contractors are in support of this. I think it's because they see the potential barriers to entry, but I really honestly believe that they're going to rue the day that they supported this when they see how much they're going to have to go through with the 2 layers of licensing. I mean, if you look at the slides, even Jackson and Laramie County, which is especially famous for bureaucracy, have less in the way of regulation than this would impose. Again, I think we really should think twice about this. We want to stimulate economic development and economic diversification. We want to have affordable housing. We really should think very long and hard before we impose this, because I don't think it's going to do any good the way it's structured. And even if they take out the language which sweeps in homeowners, it's still going to be a problem for small businesses, and I think it's still going to be bad for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Bryce Johnson?
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, Mayor.
Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, all right, this is Bryce Johnson. I'm with Elk Ridge Builders and Design. I'm a general contractor here in town. I hold licenses around the state and in Colorado for general contracting. I received my architectural structural engineering degree here at the university, worked as an engineer and as a project manager. I've been in business myself for 19 years. So I'd like to speak on the construction manager and engineering that compared to a general contractor. Those really are 2 different sets. Engineering and construction management is based towards project documentation control, and engineering is really based right towards mathematics and design and making sure it's suitable and safe. Where your general contractor should have that code administrative knowledge, but they also need to have the hands-on skill set, which you only learn that by working your way up through the trades and or working on a job site. The quality control aspect of the code is very vague and hard to, control, right? It's up to the tradesmen, the carpenters, your general contractor on site to control that piece of it. That quality control really does not show up until years after the fact of the build. So on that piece, I think there's 2 different points there.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else in the public? this Zoom user? Go ahead.
This is Michael Cisneros.
Mr. Cisneros, go ahead.
Hi, this is Mike Cisneros. Thank you, Mayor, Council members. I'd like to thank everybody that spoke today. You guys all bring up some, valid points for yourselves and for the people you may be speaking for. I'd like to thank Clarice and Todd for putting this together. It's really good. All the information that was provided today, I think, answers a lot of questions that a lot of folks have had for a period of time. I think that this is a move in the right direction. Mr. Weaver probably stated this very well from my perception, as well as probably a lot of other folks' perception. It is the move in the right direction. Nothing's perfect. Nothing ever will be perfect. But we just need to work through this and make it be positive for the members of the community. Thank you very much, and I support this.
Thank you, Mr. Cisneros.
Mayor, I don't see anybody else unmuted.
Okay, that concludes then the work session as far as I know. Clarice, have you covered everything you wanted to? Todd, have you covered everything you want to cover on this work session?
I believe we have, Clarice. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And so now we have a couple more things that we need to do as a city council. If you look at your agenda, we have city council updates and council comments, so let's start with that. Let me go with who's on the Zoom call. We're going to start with Councilor O'Doherty on council updates.
I don't have any updates. Thank
Councilor
you.
Pierce.
Yeah, no updates from me.
Councilor Weaver.
No updates at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Stalder.
I have no updates. Thank you.
We're moving right along. Councilor Harrington.
I will change that, Mr. Mayor. First, the Laramie Main Street Alliance met last night, and then most of their conversation revolved around the forthcoming code revisions. I will say Matthew from planning has spent considerable amounts of time working with both the DDA, the Laramie Main Street Alliance itself, their board, and the design committee, doing just about everything he can to make sure that the right information is out there in the public, including dropping a frequently asked questions flyer at every business in the downtown district with his phone number for them to reach out if they have other questions. So they are drafting a letter this month, and then they will vote on supporting that letter or not at their next meeting ahead of it coming back to us in February. Their communication audit continues. It's something that they, the Laramie Main Street Board and staff decided to embark on following some conversations at the end of I guess it was earlier this year, pre-COVID. And I think probably some of those issues became more prevalent through COVID, but that continues. They've been working on the city Main Street conversations. But one of the more exciting parts to come of that is they're in the process now of doing a survey of all the businesses in the downtown district to figure out how they would prefer to be communicated with, so that each business can say, we don't read our email, call us or send us a text message, or Facebook works. Each business will be able to sort of opt into their preferred method of communication, which hopefully will clean up some communication throughout downtown between the organization and the businesses they serve. And then lastly, the DDA has adopted their work plan. We'll be working through that for the next year, hoping to have a pretty impactful year. And then I would just leave you all with the note that we are starting to see some downtown businesses suffering to the point of closure from COVID. So if you get an opportunity to support particularly restaurants curbside, however you feel safe, it is a great time to do that. We're seeing some businesses closed. So I would encourage all of you to do what you can safely. And that's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't had any meetings recently. I have a Parks and Rec Board meeting tomorrow night. The mayor and I had the pleasure of attending groundbreaking ceremony at Slade Elementary School last Tuesday. Heard some outstanding speeches, including from Senator Rothfuss, about how the funding all came about to get Slade the construction money. And they're looking at 2022 for it. It's going to be a very nice elementary school, some great stories. The superintendent, Balo, came over and talked about her experience going to school at Slade. And it was a very well-attended event indoors, which was nice, last Tuesday. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Councilor McKinney. Let's start with the council comments. I have no comments. Council comments. Council comments, we'll start with Councilor Harrington. Council comments.
I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Stalder. Councilor Weaver.
Well, thank you.
Councilor Doherty.
I just have a comment. I want to compliment our staff. I think, Clarice tonight and Todd gave us good presentations, and the presentations about the carbon neutrality. I appreciate that our staff is usually like one step ahead of anything we ask, and I just think it's really a quality team, and I wanted to commend Chief Stalder because I sent him a question this morning, I think, or maybe it was last night, and he got back to me with just a really beautiful presentation explaining how the hiring process, why we have an ethical police force, and so I just want to commend our staff overall and our city manager for hiring such good people. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pierce.
No comments from me tonight. Thank you.
I think Chief Stalder's glad he stayed on. He's still with us. Okay, now we're going to go to let's go over the agenda for next Tuesday, if you have that in front of you. This should go rather quickly. Let me hit the high points, and then I want you to come back and ask specific questions, okay? The public hearing will be with Encore Partners for the real estate sale from the Turner Track. Then we're going to, in the consent agenda, will be a security grant award, Homeland Security. And then the 2 hybrid police vehicles we've talked about. There's 2 playground structures, one at Kiowa Park, which is on consent because it's under 100,000, one at Washington Park, which is just over 100,000. The municipal, the North Campus project, which Brooks Webb talked to us about, both the construction and also the services agreement. That's going to be a big dollar item on our agenda. And then the trade-in on the refuse truck, which we talked about in our earlier work session. The other thing is the donation for the Laramie Skate Park. It's a $200,000 project. The Friends of Recreation donated over half of that. The city will do half with the SBT money. And so that's basically the agenda, consent, and regular. Any specific questions anyone has on the agenda for next Tuesday?
Mr. Mayor, I have one quick question.
Go ahead, Councilor Harrington.
And we can get into this next week, but I'm curious if the Washington Park playground structure includes just regular swings. A few people have mentioned that over the last year, that there are only toddler swings there, and I'm curious if that involves traditional swings.
Honorable Mayor, through you, this is Todd Fieser. This is actually the grant application for that. So design will come probably the way the Land and Water Conservation works would be next December, January for design. But we could certainly include you on the planning process to help ensure that you get swings over there.
I trust you, Todd. Thank you.
I think you're in the right place to get the swings suited for adults. Anyone else have any questions about consent or regular agenda or anything on the agenda which we have? As you can see, we're going to be having a work session on the 22nd, I believe it is. So we'll have something ready for you on the final work session of the year. Anyone else? Okay. Anyone?
Public comment?
Yeah, now we need to go back to public comments. And again, everyone has 3 minutes for public comments. If you want to make public comments, go ahead and indicate.
Mr. Mayor, Brett Glass.
Mr. Glass, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't take that long. 2 things. First of all, I wanted to mention with respect to the Laramie Main Street Association, if they are doing anything involving that the zoning proposals that they had, which would have made most of the storefronts in downtown Laramie non-conforming, they didn't include me or either of my businesses in that. They seem to be working in a smoke-filled room, and I respectfully ask that that be given consideration, that change. The second thing, Mr. Mayor, this is on an issue that you particularly have strong views and I think good views about. The legislature's joint Interim Revenue Committee on the 17th at 4 p.m. will discuss payments in lieu of taxes as a subject, and that's something I know which you've always felt the city should receive. So you may want to be in on that. They're going to do Zoom call.
Very good. Good information. Thank you. Anyone else want to make public comments?
Nobody's unmuting, Mayor.
Okay, we'll close this public comment period then, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending tonight.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hungry? How about a hearty Castleberry's pit-cooked barbecue sandwich? Mmm.
Jess, what was Laramie like when you were a boy?
Well, I'll tell you, honey, when I was a little kid back here, it was the Wild, Wild West.
It was the Wild West and still is. Be a part of the action. Immerse your family in cowboy culture. High mountain plains foster the real cowboy spirit. Visit Laramie this summer, where the West comes alive with you in it. Laramie, Wyoming. That's why